Barnicle, some of the surrogates have been tawdry, and you wonder if it's planned or if it's just mistakes, but there have been some real low blows out there, and not necessarily pertaining to race, but to other things that you could, I guess, read back to race.
And the thing is, the proof is in the pudding also. You look at the fact that white support for Barack Obama is bleeding and has been cut in half over the past week. Something's going on out there.
Something is going on, and I do want to, when we
Joe and Mika, they have it both ways. The Clintons have it both ways. President Clinton can say, voters will be motivated by gender and race. We take it down, we report it, we put it on TV, and then at the same time he can turn and go, shame on you, you're not covering the issues, you don't care about facts, this is what you want, and people hate us anyway. So they have it both ways.
Well, Barnicle and then Craig, we want you to chime in. Here's Bill Clinton on the campaign trail yesterday talking about whether or not his wife is a polarizing figure, and the word race does come up as well. Take a listen.
The only people that she's a polarizing figure around are people who don't know her. I mean, the reason I think she's the most electable Democrat has nothing to do with race or gender. It is that they have systematically polarized the country. The right-wing Republican faction has. They first took over the Republican Party, and then they performed reverse plastic surgery on all the Democrats, right? Starting with President Carter in 1980, really starting in the late 70s. And it worked for them every single time except with me.
Wow.
The thing is, and Craig Crawford, race aside, it's amazing how divisive he is compared to Barack Obama, who asks Republicans and independents to vote for him. And here's Bill Clinton fighting the right-wing Republicans. It's just like 1998 all over again, isn't it?
I have sat down here in Florida for the last month, and I have watched the coverage, and I really think the evidence-free bias against the Clintons in the media borders on mental illness. I think when Dr. Phil gets done with Britain, he ought to go to Washington and stage an intervention at the National Press Club. We've gotten to a situation where if you try to be fair to the Clintons, if you try to be objective, if you try to say, well, where's the evidence of racism in the Clinton campaign, you're accused of being a naive shill for the Clintons. I think if somebody came out today and said that Bill Clinton, if the town drunk in Columbia came out and said Bill Clinton last night was poisoning the drinking water in Obama precincts, the media would say, oh, there goes Clinton again. You can't trust him. I really think it's a problem. You know what? You guys make him stronger with this bashing. This actually is what makes the Clintons stronger. I would submit that one reason maybe a lot of whites aren't voting for Obama is all this unfair accusations against a popular Democratic president, basically calling him a racist. That may be one reason a lot of white voters are moving away from Obama.
Mike, hold on a second. I think that's a good point, but let me ask Mike Barnicle first whether he, right now, is racked with mental illness. Are your attacks towards Bill Clinton, as Craig Crawford said, evidence of something bordering on mental illness?
Well, I've been crazy all my life, but the point is, the point that Craig just raised is one that I tried to address just a few seconds ago, in that the Clintons have it both ways. They get it both ways. They are so skillful. Nobody's calling former President Clinton a racist. That's outrageous to even think that. Given
then what are you saying when you say he injected race? Talk about having it both ways, Mike.
But they know
about having it both ways. You want to say he injected race, but you're not calling him a racist.
They know how to inject race into a campaign quite skillfully.
Craig, stop. Let's stop for a second. Craig, Mike Barnicle's going to talk, and then you respond.
Oh
Mike
God.
Barnicle.
When Joe sounds like the voice of reason, I'm scared. Barnicle.
Well, what was Craig saying? What was Craig trying to say?
I'm saying
Craig was trying to say...
You're saying he's injecting race, but you're not saying he's a racist. Now, what are you saying when he's injecting race? If he says the word race in a speech like the clip you just showed, that's interjecting race? He said race and gender have nothing to do with it. I don't get this.
Craig, it's a fact. It's a fact of American life that race plays a part in our everyday existence. To talk about race is not to be a racist.
I'm asking for your evidence of what you're accusing this former president of doing. Where is the evidence?
I'm not accusing him of doing anything. I'm just stating what he's been
interjecting
doing.
Race. You're saying he interjected race. How? Give me an example.
Okay, Craig Crawford, I'm going to ask you to stop again. We're on a delay. This is making it difficult for us to have a civil conversation. Mike Barnicle, respond, and Craig, you have got to let him say more than 3 words without jumping in because we're on a delay. I want you, Mike Barnicle, to explain how Bill Clinton is subtly using race, and when there is a gap of half a second, Craig, you respond. Mike, go.
Craig, and everyone out there, when President Clinton is on the stump and he says, as he did yesterday, that the voters in South Carolina will more likely be motivated by race and gender as part of their voting pattern, that is very subtly raising an issue that's right in front of us. To deny that is to deny the obvious.
Okay. South Carolina was chosen by the National Democratic Party, put in this calendar, in this place, for racially motivated reasons. They wanted this primary to highlight, to spotlight the appeal of the presidential candidates to African American voters. That is obvious. It is an obvious thing for the former president, to note that this will be about race, this vote. I mean, I don't see that is anyway, I don't see where that is inappropriate for him to make an observation about a primary that was chosen for that very reason.
I think maybe the IFB down there in Orlando isn't working. No one that I know of this morning, including myself, has said that raising this as an issue has been inappropriate. It's a fact of political life. It's a fact of our daily life.
You've attacked him all morning for it.
What's that?
You guys have attacked him all morning for it.
Well, I don't know how you view an attack as stating, as quoting a former president on the stump. It's not an attack. It's just discussing what is going on in the course of this campaign. That's all it is.
Hold on a second. Let me ask Craig Crawford a question. Okay, Craig, let's assume for a second that we in the press have dreamed this up, that this is a, quote, fairy tale. If, in fact, that is the case, please explain over the past week why Barack Obama's support among white voters has plummeted, and now only 1 in 10 white voters in South Carolina are supporting a man that got the overwhelming support of white voters in Iowa.
I think repeatedly accusing the Clinton campaign of interjecting race, of not calling them racist, although I think a lot of voters may interpret these accusations as that, may actually be as much of a factor in driving white votes away from Obama as anything else. And I would also note, I have to point out, back a few months ago when Oprah and Obama went to Columbia and went to the stadium there, they made that campaign about race. That was a civil rights rally, and which was great. I mean, it is an exciting thing. We have an African American who's a viable candidate for president. But Obama in that event made himself the black candidate. That may have had an impact on white voters too. I just don't think the Clinton campaign can solely be responsible for that.
I do not understand how having Oprah Winfrey up on stage with you makes you the black candidate. After that rally in South Carolina,
no. Go back and look at what they said.
Well, you just said that they made themselves a black candidate. All I can tell you is let's look at the polls. White voters still voted for him in Iowa. A lot of white voters still voted for him in New Hampshire. We came down to South Carolina. White voters were still supporting Barack Obama in high numbers and historic numbers. But over the past week or so, since this discussion has began, his support among white voters has collapsed. And it hasn't collapsed because Oprah Winfrey was here 3 months ago, has it?
No, I'm suggesting to you that Obama's tried to have it both ways, that he has tried to rally the African-American support in that speech, I would take you back to that, and the speeches they gave, that was a direct appeal to African-American voters, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying he's been trying to have it both ways himself, appealing direct appeals to African-American voters on racial issues, on presenting himself as a great accomplishment for African Americans, which is wonderful. But he does make that an issue, and so it's not just the Clintons who make it an issue.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have 5 white people talking about race. The end timer's just gone off. Jim Clyburn, who knows something or two about racial politics, is going to be with us soon. He also has accused Bill Clinton of subtly using the race card and told him to chill out. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to actually talk to an African American about race. That is a radical concept, but we will do that. But let's move now to something that white guys can talk about, Rudy Giuliani. And boy, is he ever white.